Michael.
Greetings Internet, I'm your host AVCF and welcome to the Loading Time Game channel. On today's video I'm going to talk about a game that is both very representative of the 80s gaming and the Sega Genesis pre-Sonic the Hedgehog era. I'm going to talk about Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. After 28 years of its original release, has this game aged well? Let's check it out. Usually we remember the Sega Genesis in the context of the 16-bit war against the SNES, and we usually hear about the console like it would begin with Sonic the Hedgehog. But even if it sounds like a bit odd at first glance, the Genesis' first concurrent was the NES, which was the dominant system in the American market and didn't give any chance for the Master System. In order to establish its 16-bit console as the cooler and more advanced system, Sega has signed some sports celebrities to feature in its then new line of games, and has signed to the world's biggest musical celebrity of that time, Michael Jackson. Loosely based over the 1988 namesake movie, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was designed as a side-scroller platformer, with themed-based stages each representing one classic MJ song, or even a passage from the movie. The game then starts with a representation of the Smooth Criminal video clip. Did you recognize these sounds? Just as a bit of curiosity, the stage intro presents for the first time two sound effects that would later become completely linked with the Sonic the Hedgehog games. Back to the Moonwalker itself, the player is swiftly introduced to MJ's avatar dressed with his gangster-style suit, armed with his dance moves as his attacks. It also becomes quickly evident that the life bar also served as the mirror for the A-button special attacks. The first stage also shows the basic foundation for the rest of the game with minimal variation. Browse through several stages screens, beating waves of generic thugs and rescuing a certain number of kidnapped children, which triggers Michael's spell bubbles, who will guide the player to where the stage boss is, and also is here where the game's issue starts. Firstly, you don't exactly face a boss, just a wave of the same enemies that you already have beaten before countless times throughout the stage, with a slight variation in some occasions. Alas, here it becomes evident one of the developers' tricks to artificially increase the game's difficulty. As it says in the game's manual, as Michael loses life, his magic also loses reach and power, becoming unavailable as the life bar reaches its minimum. So, just when you need Michael's power the most, the game leaves you with nothing, as MJ is almost helpless without its magic and it's almost impossible to hit the enemies from short distance without getting hit first. It just becomes an exercise of frustration. The game's main problem though is that its novelty aura fades quickly, much due to the fact that the game's experience is always the same, just with its stage getting bigger, which makes the player's experience more laborious as the game progresses. The Moonwalker's level design is simplistic even by 1989 standards. Also, the game's difficulty just spikes from the cavern stages, when the game starts to feature lots of fake rooms so loaded with enemies that it can sometimes suffer from slowdown. Here's when the enemies and the songs also start to repeat, and the whole experience just gets off track dramatically. So, Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is a bad game? No, not at all. Firstly, the game has its moments. It's fun in the beginning, and differently from lots of other licensed games both from that era and after it was very well produced by Sega. Moonwalker is graphically very well done. MJ's sprite is instantaneously recognizable, is big, well drawn and well animated, just like as the enemies too. The backgrounds might look mildly poor today, but were nicely detailed by the standards of its time, especially when compared with what the concurrent, the NES, could show off. And sure, the game's strongest point is its soundtrack based on the classic MJ songs like Billie Jean, Bad, Smooth Criminal and Beat It. Sega did a fantastic job with the Genesis Limited sound chip, As it says in the Ultimate History of Video Games book, Michael Jackson even released a statement saying the Genesis was the first game console that had enough power to handle his music. On the other hand though, it's impossible not to mention the almost criminal omission of the song Thriller for the Woods stages, which I think that it should be called as Cemetery or maybe Tombs, but whatever. So, I think it's clear that Michael Jackson's Moonwalker is a very well made game for its time and helped to establish the Sega Genesis on the American market, but it's also a pretty limited game. It was a good licensed game though, but there's a reason why Michael Jackson's Moonwalker was forgotten as soon as games like Sonic the Hedgehog were launched. Moonwalker is a fairly fun game, especially in the beginning, but it's not a game that really aged well. Michael's classic songs and video clips suits better for a nostalgia trip. Thanks for the audience, until the next time, and goodbye.